So I have a real problem with the clichéd phrase that's often repeated by people who are voting in this or any given election, that if you don't vote, you have no right to complain about what happens. And the reason I have a problem with this is because it necessarily implies that if you do vote, and ostensibly if the candidate you vote for wins, then you won't even have any need to complain anymore because everything is going to be good and perfect. And obviously this is false. Just because your candidate wins doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. First of all, our government is not set up in a way that if a person is elected to office, they're going to be able to do whatever they want. And second of all, even if they can do whatever they want, unless you're a complete and total brainwashed party lemming, you're probably going to have disagreements with even what your candidate wants to do. And if you don't have those disagreements, there's a real problem. You should reflect on that. Why you just completely agree with candidate A or B. That's pathetic, actually. But the thing is, I did not consent to this I did not give explicit consent to this government that I live under. And I guess you can argue that I continue to give implied consent to the government I live under by choosing to continue to live under its territory, to live within its territory. But I've actually moved out of the country a few times and spent up to a year in different places, and that's difficult too. It's not easy just to leave the country and live somewhere else. Plus, there are reasons that go above and beyond the governing situation of this country that makes me want to stay in the country in which I was born. Not the least of which being my family is here. So the idea that because I'm not voting in this election or any election, that you that you'd be talking about, it doesn't mean that I've lost the right to complain about what the government does. That's ridiculous. Because first of all, we have a First Amendment, which probably the paramount reason that amendment exists is to give us the right to complain about the government. And the First Amendment doesn't say you have the right to free speech and to petition the government with your grievances if you voted in the last election. There's no stipulation that says you have to vote. Second of all, and I'm going to be specific here about this current election, Harris versus Trump, neither of those candidates are even approximating a vision that I personally have for the country. So the idea that I have to choose one of these poor candidates or the other in order to have the right to be to have some grievances with what the winner of the election does is absurd. It's just completely absurd. There's no good argument for that, and people need to stop saying that shit because, reflect on this. Your candidate that you're voting for is not that great. They might be better than the other one. There might be a marginal improvement in society if your candidate wins. That could be the case. However, it's not going to be a utopia if your candidate wins. And if other people, even those who didn't vote at all, want to complain about the government that we see in the years moving forward, then so be it. They have every right to make those complaints.